Hello and welcome back to Israel with Aline. This beautiful green valley is the place that has seen the most wars and bloodshed in all of Israel. Today we are on Mount Megiddo, looking out over the valley of Armageddon. We will walk through this valley and see the battles that have taken place here in the past and their relation to the current war, but mainly to the final war and the Battle of Armageddon. We will also see new things in this place, from new archaeological findings to new military constructions. So, if you are ready, let's get started. In fact, there are two places known as Armageddon. One of them is the ancient city of Megiddo, which we can see here behind us. We talked in depth about the history and archaeology of this place last week here on the channel, and I will leave the link up here and also at the end for you to watch later. But today we are going to talk about the other Armageddon, this second place, which is precisely the valley that is down here. The Valley of Armageddon is in a very important geographical and military location because the Via Maris, the most important trade route in the ancient world, passed through it, where fortunes passed all the time. And because of that, there was always a great deal of covetousness. The kings and empires wanted to conquer this route to have this fortune and power for themselves. And because of that, great battles were always happening here. But of course, the battles didn't happen up here on the mount over the city of Megiddo. Instead, they happened in the valley where the trade route passed. So the Valley of Armageddon is the real site of the battles, not the city. And what we're going to do together now is go down and get to know and walk together through this valley. Let's go. See that from here we can see the borders, the end of the valley. On one side the valley ends where Mount Carmel begins, the place where Elijah battled against the prophets of Baal. Here we see the valley, which is known as the Valley of Jezreel or the Valley of Armageddon. Now, in the background are the mountains of Nazareth and Galilee, and continuing on, we see the hills of Samaria. Wow! Look, a military plane is passing right above us. Walking through this valley is a very strange feeling because on one hand, it is such a peaceful and pastoral place at this moment, and it's almost easy to forget the bloody history of this place. 34 battles and wars took place here. Egyptians, Canaanites, Israelites, Midianites, Amalekites, Philistines, Hasmoneans, Greeks, Romans, Byzantines, Muslims, Crusaders, Mamluks, Mongols, French, Ottomans, English, Australians, Germans, Arabs, and Israelis fought here. And today we are going to delve into some of these battles, which will help us better understand the future of the apocalypse. And the first major battle fought in this valley is literally the first documented battle in the entire world. It's called the Battle of Megiddo, and it took place in 1457 BC, almost 3,500 years ago, between Egypt and the Canaanites. In this battle, approximately 20,000 soldiers fought, 10,000 from each side, and it ends with the great victory of the Egyptian pharaoh Thutmose III. And then the Egyptians conquered this region and will control it for more than 300 years. Look how interesting. Precisely the first documented battle in the entire world happened here. And it was colossal. We are talking about 20,000 people fighting. That would be a lot even today. But to talk about a battle of 20,000 people 3,500 years ago was really an unimaginable number of soldiers. And one more interesting thing, we are talking about the site of the first documented battle in the world and the place that, according to the Bible, too, will be the start of the last battle. The Bible also tells us about some of the battles that happened here. For example, in the book of Joshua, it is written that he defeats the king of Megiddo, the king of Armageddon, which is the city where we started today's tour. It is also written in the book of Judges that Deborah and Barak set up their camps where? On Mount Tabor. See that very round hill that is behind us? This is Mount Tabor. And they fight the battle here inside the valley. And it is written that they win by the waters of Megiddo. I mean, probably some small water source or some stream here inside the valley of Armageddon. The same book of Judges tells us that Gideon defeats the Midianites here in Armageddon. But the people of Israel also suffered defeats at this location. For example, King Saul is killed by the Philistines where? On Mount Gilboa, which is this mountain that is behind us. Here in the valley as well, King Ahaziah of Judah is killed. I told you how bloody this place really is. But the most important biblical battle that took place here is the one that resulted in the death of King Josiah. And many believe that this battle that happened here in the 7th century BC is related to the final battle. And now let's learn more about the battle of Josiah's death. In the year 640 before Christ, the young Josiah becomes king of all Judah, and he is a descendant of the house of David and becomes a very just king. Josiah was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned for 31 years in Jerusalem. Of age when he began to reign and reigned for 31 years in Jerusalem. Josiah did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, walked in the ways of David, his father, and did not turn aside to the right or to the left. And during his reign, Josiah expanded the territory of Judah, and he included Samaria and the Jezreel Valley. But everything starts to change in the year 609 when Pharaoh Necho II asked for permission to cross through his territory. He was leading his troops from Egypt northward to join his Assyrian allies. They were heading to Carchemish to fight against the Babylonians, who at this point were gaining a lot of strength. And the route, as we mentioned, went through the Jezreel Valley by way of Armageddon. And the only thing Josiah needed to do was give the okay for them to cross. But we don't know why Josiah decides not to let them pass through here. And when Necho II arrives here with his troops, instead of finding an open path, he comes face to face with Josiah, prepared for battle along with his soldiers. And then this great war happens that is described in the Bible. After all this, King Necho of Egypt went up to fight at Carchemish by the Euphrates, and Josiah went out to fight against him. Then Necho sent messengers to him, saying, "What do you have against me, king of Judah? I am not coming against you this time, but against the kingdom with which I am at war. And God told me to hurry. Stop opposing God who is with me, lest he destroy you. But Josiah did not turn back. On the contrary, he disguised himself to fight against him. He did not listen to the words that Necho had spoken from God, and went to fight in the valley of Megiddo. And the battle ends with the death of Josiah and his territory taken by the Egyptians. Josiah was the last king of the house of David, the last king of Judah to reign freely in this region. Because after him, the kings were put in place by the Egyptians and functioned as puppet kings. And not for long, because 23 years later, the last king of the house of David dies, the last real king of Judah. Josiah's battle ends the Davidic dynasty, the house of David, and his death here is the reason the final battle will begin here. And in a little while, we will tell you all this connection. See what John writes in the book of Revelation, chapter 16. Then heard a loud voice coming from the sanctuary saying to the 7 angels, Go pour out on the earth the 7 bowls of God's wrath. The first angel went and poured out his bowl on the earth, and harmful and painful sores came upon the people who bore the mark of the beast and worshipped its image. The second angel poured out his bowl into the sea, and it became like the blood of a dead man, and every living thing in the sea died. The third angel poured out his bowl into the rivers and the springs of water, and they became blood. The fourth angel poured out his bowl on the sun, and it was given power to scorch people with fire. The fifth angel poured out his bowl on the throne of the beast, and its kingdom was plunged into darkness. People gnawed their tongues in agony and cursed the God of heaven because of their pains and their sores. Yet they refused to repent of what they had done. The sixth angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up to prepare the way for the kings from the east. Then I saw 3 impure spirits that looked like frogs. They came out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. They are demonic spirits that perform signs. They go out to the kings of the whole world to gather them for the battle on the great day of God Almighty. Then the 3 spirits gathered them at the place that in Hebrew is called Armageddon. And from the sanctuary came a loud voice from the throne saying, It is done. Then there were flashes of lightning, voices, peals of thunder, and a severe earthquake. There has never been such a severe earthquake since man existed on earth. The great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations collapsed. God remembered the great Babylon and gave her the cup of the wine of the fury of his wrath. As we heard in verse 16, this is where the kings will gather to prepare themselves for the great battle. But when John writes this, didn't the city of Armageddon no longer exist? Its remains till Megiddo were behind us. The city was destroyed and abandoned behind us. The city was destroyed and abandoned for the last time in the year 350 before Christ, centuries before John was born. And this is further proof that when John refers to the battle and the kings who will come to this place, he is not referring to Mount Megiddo, but to the Valley of Armageddon. This is because even after the destruction of the city, the valley continues to be a strategically important location in military terms. And we have a great example of this. In the year of 1799, Napoleon Bonaparte from France arrives here, and he advances in battle against the enemy Turkish troops. And he, who was one of the greatest military strategists who ever lived, says the following words about this valley. All the armies of the world could maneuver their forces on this vast plain. There is no place in the entire world more suitable for war than this. It's the most natural battlefield on all the earth. But beyond the physical and strategic importance, there is a spiritual reason for choosing this location. See that the final battle led by Jesus will restore the house of David. And precisely Jesus is a descendant of David, Josiah, precisely this king who was killed here in the valley. If here is where the house of David falls, nothing more significant than restoring it in the same place. When Josiah dies in battle, the house of David falls. But this is not the only consequence of this battle, because when Josiah fights against Necho's second, Necho wins, but this battle will weaken the Egyptian army, and that's why this battle will weaken the Egyptian army. And that's why they fight against the Babylonians. They are so weakened that the Egyptians, they lose to the Babylonians, and this strengthens the Babylonian Empire. This will be a terrible consequence because the Babylonians will then strengthen, and 23 years later, they arrive here and they conquer all of Judea. They destroy Jerusalem. They destroy the Temple of Jerusalem. And the Ark of the Covenant will disappear. So Josiah's decision to battle here and not let Necho pass caused his death, the fall of the house of David, the strengthening of the Babylonian Empire, and thus also the destruction of the Temple of Jerusalem. And according to the Bible, the battle, the great Babylon, and it will finally fall. So the beginning of the great Babylon, and it will finally fall. So the beginning of the battle to be here can spiritually connect with the reversal of Josiah's failure. Here falls the house of David, so here will it return. Here Babylon strengthens and destroys Jerusalem, so here also the great Babylon will finally fall. But will this great battle really happen here? Let's now talk about what the Valley of Armageddon is like these days and what has been happening here differently in recent months. Let's start by saying that the Valley of Armageddon, as we can see, is predominantly an agricultural area these days. It's interesting to think that despite all this time that has passed, almost nothing has been built within the valley. There are no big cities here. The big city near here is Nazareth. We can see it here on the mountain, but it's on the mountain of Nazareth, which is already out of the Afula, part of which is indeed within the valley, but it's not really a big city. And as we can see, most of the valley remains open and available to this day. What there is, but it's hidden, is the Megiddo base. It's here in the background. In Hebrew, we call it Minhat Megiddo or Shachar Sheva, which means dawn, 7. It was created as an air base in 1941 by the Royal British Air Force. They who fought here in World War I against the Turks, they then built this air base, which continues to be in use to this day for both civilian and military use. And there are small civilian planes, also unmanned military aerial vehicles, and some types of drone. And since 2011, there has been a firefighting squadron. Of course, we don't have all the information about the military use of this place. We know it is strategic. And today, as well as the last time we were here, we saw many planes passing through the skies. Some of the planes were civilian, and we also saw military planes when we were on top of Armageddon Hill, and also military helicopters. But the news we have and can disclose is that in March of 2023, a plan was approved to expand the infrastructure of the Megiddo base. You are seeing the plans on the screen that were released by the government of Israel itself. And now we move on to our next location to talk about another recently released news about updates on the Valley of Armageddon. As you can see, there are several active archaeological excavations here within the valley. We see some of them here behind us. I know the place doesn't look very glamorous, and it really isn't. But here they are opening the earth and rediscovering the history of the Armageddon Valley. And the archaeologists announced at the beginning of 2024 that they finally found the Legio. It has long been suspected that there was a Roman military base here in the valley. And they finally found it, this base that belonged to the 6th Roman Legion, and it had capacity for 5,600 soldiers, and they stayed here for 180 years. This shows us once again the strategic military importance of this place throughout history. And next to the excavations of Legio is the Megiddo prison. Yes, there is a prison here inside the valley. We are now going to the next one to continue our story. As you saw, we passed right in front of the prison. We didn't stop to film there, but a few meters to the side for safety and legal reasons. And we are next to the prison, and I want to tell about the excavations inside the prison because they are linked with Christianity. In 2005, a prisoner, yes, a person who was incarcerated there, accidentally found in the courtyard the beginning of a small mosaic. And then when the prison staff found out about this, they called the archaeologist Jotam Teper. And he excavated and found a beautiful and very well preserved mosaic of 54 square meters, dated from the year 230 AD. It's not every day that you find a mosaic like this, let alone inside a prison, and a mosaic that speaks of Jesus. On it is written the following: Akeptos, lover of God, who offered the table to God Jesus Christ as a memorial. And in it, there are also ancient Christian symbols, such as the fish. And it is believed that this place here next to it, where the prison is today, was a church. And if it really is from the world already found, showing once again the deep connection of the world already found, showing once again the deep connection of this place, this valley, with Christianity and the Bible. And will the government of Israel expand the Megiddo prison? According to them, the Megiddo prison complex, whose planning has recently begun, will be the next generation of prison facilities in Israel. We have reached the highest viewpoint from where you can see the Valley of Armageddon. And in this valley, archaeological excavations continue to be carried out, revealing the history of this place. Constructions and expansions of the air base and the prison show us the strategic importance of this place to this day. And the future? Really, only God knows. What we know from the Bible is what is written in Revelation 16:16. So the three spirits gathered them at the place that in Hebrew is called Armageddon. Many things indicate to us the connection of this place with the beginning of the final battle. But the text of Revelation 16 is not literal, but metaphorical. The text of Revelation 16 is not literal, but metaphorical. And now I want to hear from you. Do you think this is a great battle? Or do you believe that the text is this great battle? Or do you believe that the text of Revelation 16 is a metaphor in the Bible? Leave your opinion here in the comments now. But for now, I hope you enjoyed today's video and get to know a little more in depth about the Valley of Armageddon. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. A big kiss and see you, God willing, next Sunday.